Hello, my name's Rob Edwards. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we are talking Wheel of Time. Particularly, we are talking episode 4, The Dragon Reborn. Before we get to the review, just a few sort of bits of housekeeping really. As normal, I am going to attempt to stick largely book spoiler free for most of this video. I'm going to spoil the heck out of episode 4 and possibly some of the episodes which went before it, so please make sure you've seen the actual TV episodes I'm talking about before watching this review. Really watch them. I'm going to spoil some big stuff here. But I'm trying not to talk about any book spoilers beyond the stage we've gotten to in the show. That said, I have added an extra image today at the end of the video because there is some book spoiler stuff I desperately want to talk about. So as before, the main review is going to be 7 images for the 7 spokes of the Wheel of Time, and all of that's going to be spoiler free. But the last image, image number 8, and I'll give you plenty of warning before it comes up, I am going to get a bit more spoilery about book stuff for that. Other bit of housekeeping, I got a downlike on my last video, which I can only assume was because my hair was scruffy and I was in a dressing gown. So I've buttoned myself up a bit, and my hair is, well, it's always a mess, but it's about as good as I can get it. So hopefully no downvotes for being scruffy this time round. Okay, let's get into the review. We start with the cold open, and we immediately jump into stuff which we didn't see in the books, but was talked about happening in the books, as we visit the kingdom of... I've listened to the audiobooks too much. It is Gildan in my head. I think they called it Gaelden in the TV show. Certainly they pronounce it differently, but it's going to take a while to adjust to the TV pronunciation of some of these things. So in my head, it is Gildan. And we meet this character, Logain Blah, who has proclaimed himself to be the Dragon Reborn and has mounted an assault on the palace of the king of Gildan. And he confronts him. The two of them face off against each other at the end. And the king is saying, "You will never wear the silver crown." And Logain says, "What use is a crown to the Dragon Reborn?" And we see what a powerful, strong character Logain is. I love the fact that as he's walking along the battlements, fighting off the soldiers of the king, he does not need to do all of the sort of hand-waving and gesturing that the Aes Sedai do when they use the One Power. He stands there and the One Power bends to his will, deflecting spears, grabbing people, and later on healing wounds as well, of course. And I love that. The power move that is doing all this stuff and not flexing more than sort of clenching his fist at one point. I absolutely love that. And it was a strong, what's the phrase the kids use? It was a mood. Yes, it was. And a really interesting portrayal here in this image of how the taint, how the corruption is being manifested for him. These two, they're not really angel and devil on his shoulders, since they're both aspects of the corruption, but they're telling him, kill the king, kill the king. But Logain reaches out and heals the king instead and says, there is a place for everyone following the dragon, even my enemies. And that was really strong, a really strong cold open, a really powerful image of who Logain is, because Logain is a fascinating character in the story of the Wheel of Time, and we have only begun to scratch the surface of him and his actions in the series. I'm very excited to see him, and this guy playing him is amazing. When we get on to the episode proper, we have 3 strands to talk about, and since I've only got 7 images in my self-imposed rules about how I do my reviews, we are going to focus most of them on one of the subplots. So a brief chat about Perrin and Egwene with the Tuatha, and just to say, actually they did a really good job here of presenting the Tinkers in a way which I found more interesting than they were in the books. The description of the Way of the Leaf resonates, and in particular with Perrin and what we know he's gone through. I still don't approve of the fridging in episode 1 of Perrin's wife. I still think it was a bad choice. But having established that he has done that, this is more resonant. It still underpins this whole back and forth about the Way of the Leaf that Perrin has. Also, I just want to say the show is doing an amazing job at making me like Aram. This is particularly amazing because I detest him in the books. Partially, I think, because I very much, when I was first reading The Eye of the World, I was very much a Rand Egwene shipper, although that predated, of course, the use of the shipping phrase, and Aram being there kind of getting in the way of that. But mostly, I just found him really annoying. But Aram in the TV show, he's great. He's charismatic. He's interesting. He's funny. I genuinely like this character that I hated in the books. And that's really interesting. The other subplot I don't have a great deal to talk about here is the Matt, Rand, Tom storyline. I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved it. The chance for Tom to give the history of his nephew Owen was great. This idea that Tom is seeing what's going on with Matt and interpreting it as early signs of the madness of using the One Power is a really interesting way to go, putting this suspicion on Matt. But I think it's clear from this episode, wink, that there is something else going on with Matt here. And his confrontation with the Fade, with the ruby-hilted dagger from Shadar Logoth, is really kind of showing that there is something strange going on with Matt. And the way this whole scene is set up, making you question whether Matt has actually murdered this poor family. I won't lie, for a moment I thought perhaps they were going to go there. But it does, I think, make it clear that it was the Fade who killed the Grinwalds. So at least Matt's in the clear for that one. At the end, of course, Tom confronts the Fade, giving the boys a chance to make good their escape. And from everything we've learned about fighting a Fade, things do not look good for Tom. But we do not see him actually die. Most of the stuff that I want to talk about, though, from this episode, clearly, I would imagine, comes from Nynaeve's storyline amongst the Aes Sedai at the camp with Loghain. And all of the stuff between Nynaeve and Lan was really cool. I like the relationship they're building up, the friendship that they've got going on there. It's really solid. And it's really nice to see Lan, particularly, in a place where he feels he can let his guard down, even if it's just a little bit. We do get to see him having fun with his friends, the other warders. We get to see him being just a little bit playful, a little bit of comedy from him, which is not a thing that I would ever attach to Lan normally. But I think here it works. It works to see him in a situation. Things have not gotten desperate yet. So it is great to see Lan having the freedom to be a little bit more letting his hair down, I guess. And I do. I love the interaction between Nynaeve and Lan, and that's really fun. Nynaeve's relationships in this episode are really fascinating. Not just with Lan, but with the other warders. We have that really nice, friendly conversation around the campfire with the other warders, which I loved. That really great kind of moment where she says, what are warders, and they say, the Aes Sedai serve the world, and what does that make you? Proud. Great stuff. And I also loved the conversation that we see at the start and end of Nynaeve talking to Liandrin. And when Liandrin leaves, Nynaeve says, "That woman is a snake." I particularly enjoyed that as well. And it's, a spoiler for the end of the episode, but if you're watching this, hopefully you've seen the entire episode. It's fairly clear here that they are doing the thing where Aes Sedai can see the strength of other channelers, even the potential strength of other channelers. And it's clear that the reason Liandrin is making time to speak to this farm girl, essentially, partly it's to try and pump her for information about Moiraine, but also it's partly to sound her out, to get her on board for joining the Reds further down the line. And I also like that we get more of an insight into what the different Argers mean. And we actually get the word Arger, which I think is the first time we've heard it in the show. So again, we have a masterclass really of introducing ideas without doing huge info dumps. So we do learn a little bit about the Green Arger from Moiraine talking to Alana. Aes Sedai names, I always get them mixed up. But we do get some of that from her, and also from Karen as well. And we get a little bit more about what the Reds are and what they are in the world, from the back and forth between, it's not Karen, is it? It's Carini and Liandrin, I thought was really good as well. And so we are beginning to get a picture of what these different colours that the Aes Sedai wear mean. And that is great. I'm wearing my reds today. I'm not a red Arger myself, but there we go. Wearing my reds. We also get a really interesting insight, a bit more detail on the bonds between Aes Sedai and Warder. And Step in here is a great window into that. We see that not all Aes Sedai have the same relationship with their Warder that Moiraine does, but the underpinning part of it, the idea of being there to help the Aes Sedai protect the world, is a thing which makes the Warders proud, is a wonderful sentiment. And the warmth we see between Stepin and Carini is great. And my wife, when she watched this episode, said, "He's a Finnish actor." He was in Vikings. I've never watched the Vikings, but my wife being Finnish and me living in Finland, she was very excited to see a Finnish actor on screen in The Wheel of Time. So I'm glad we could do that for her as well. And then we have all the stuff which happens in the cave with Loghain and the two Aes Sedai shielding him and all of this stuff. And there's some really powerful stuff which happens in there. And in particular, shortly after, as we see in the picture here, Loghain breaks out, we see the confrontation between Moiraine and Loghain, which I love. I love the fact that we get to see this kind of face-off between these two characters. And Moiraine partly buying time for the other Aes Sedai to recover, but I think partly also just sort of testing. She's confident that one of the people from the Two Rivers is the Dragon Reborn, but she wants to know. She wants to know from Loghain. She wants to actually hear what he has to say. And I think that's a really interesting take on their relationship. I loved it. And then later, we have this big battle. Actually, I say big battle. The attack by the Dragonsworn on the Aes Sedai camp was a little bit underwhelming. I like the kind of special effects of the Aes Sedai doing explosions and all that stuff. Good action stuff, but it did feel... I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, it's always just going to be a skirmish. That's all that can be, really. But I did feel a little underwhelmed by that action scene, really. We had a number of people just running through the woods and other people running out from the woods in the other direction, and there were explosions in the background, and it didn't really give me a sense of place or purpose or anything like that. But Nynaeve did stab a guy, so, you get what you can from that. And then Logain breaks out of the shield because Stepin is... Actually, I'm not sure that I understand the mechanics of this. Stepin leaps forward, puts the axes through the shield, and that somehow gives Logain a way to creep out of the shield, which doesn't feel right to me because the whole point of the shield is blocking his access to the one power. So either it is blocked or it is not. It's not like it's contained necessarily within... Anyway, doesn't really matter. He does step in, stabby, axes explode, bits go everywhere, lots of people injured. My wife shrieked, basically, when we realised that Lan had his throat cut and was bleeding out on the centre of the floor. And while she was screaming like, oh my God, no, they can't kill off Lan now, I am meanwhile grinning from ear to ear because I know exactly what's happening next. And we get the awesomeness of Nynaeve going Super Saiyan and healing everything in sight, basically, desperate to keep Lan alive, angry that the way this is all going. She reaches and she manages to channel for the first time that we really see, and we get an idea of quite how strong Nynaeve is in the One Power. And this is why so many of the Aes Sedai earlier in the episode were really interested in her, because she is so very powerful. And that was a perfect way to end this episode. An episode which had almost nothing from it which was directly in the books. Lots of things inspired by stuff in the books. Lots of stuff that could have happened but didn't in the books. It is the most divergent from the main RJ text, but it, on the same time, somehow managed to feel the most Wheel of Time of all episodes that we've had so far. And that was a very interesting oddity, really. Now, if you don't want book spoilers, this is a great time to end the video. I will keep talking long enough to give you a chance to switch it off, because there are just a few things that I want to talk about which are specifically geeking about some book stuff. So if that's it for you today, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Cheers. But if you are staying around for a couple of book things, now is the time. So much cool stuff from the book here. I love seeing the relationship building between Lan and Nynaeve, as I talked about. It is something which we don't get enough of in the book. It sometimes feels like it comes a bit out of nowhere. There are hints. Some people say it does literally come out of nowhere. I don't think that's entirely true. Robert Jordan does lay a few bits of groundwork through the Eye of the World. But for it to come almost to a head, really, at the end of book one, did feel a bit unearned. And that is not the case in the TV show. I love the way they're building up on that. It is great. I'm not so keen on the use of the word prayer. Again, gives a bit more religion to the world of the Wheel of Time, which I'm not sure it really has. I loved the fact that the girl's doll that she tries to give to Matt is a doll of Brigitte, who protects her in her dreams. That's amazing, and really foreshadows a lot of great stuff later on. But the image that I wanted to end on here, the image I wanted to talk about, and something I've not seen a lot of people mention here, I just want to take a moment to have a look at what Egwene is wearing around the camp of the Tuatha'an. As she's walking around the camp there, she has what can only to be described as some sort of shawl on, a shawl with many stripes of colours on it. And I see you, Rafe Judkins and the costume designers. I see what you're doing there. I see what you're foreshadowing. And I grinned when I noticed that. And another thing which I liked about the time we spent with the Tinkers in this episode. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. That's it from me this time. I'm toying with the idea of doing a bonus video later in the week about the things that the TV show is doing better than the books, because I think there are some things the TV show is doing better than the books, and I think that might be nice and controversial and get a few clicks. Or it may not. I'm still in two minds about whether to do that or not. Keep an eye out for it. If that's a thing that would interest you, comment in the comment section, whatever. But in the meantime, until then, or until next week's breakdown of episode 5, I will catch you next time. Cheers.